Harlem, New York. 9:43 p.m. Saturday, August 15th, 1942. The air inside Minton's playhouse hung thick with cigarette smoke and the kind of tension that makes smart men check their exits. Outside, the summer heat still radiated from the pavement, but inside, the temperature had dropped to something colder than winter. At a corner table, surrounded by three men who thought muscle made them untouchable, sat Vincent "Vinny" Razor Torino. He was a mid-level enforcer for the Genovese family, a man whose ambition exceeded his intelligence by dangerous margins. His double-breasted suit cost more than most Harlem families earned in 6 months, and he wore his prejudice like a badge of honor. Across the room, Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson entered through the side door. He wasn't there for trouble. He was there to collect payment from a numbers runner who'd been skimming. Bumpy wore a custom-tailored charcoal gray suit with subtle pinstripes, the fabric an imported Italian wool that caught the club's dim lighting like liquid mercury. His shoes were polished to a mirror shine. He moved with the calculated grace of a man who never hurried because he never had to. As Bumpy passed Torino's table, the jazz quartet finished their set. In the sudden silence, Torino's voice cut through the room like a broken bottle. "Look at this," Torino announced, loud enough for everyone to hear. A monkey playing dress up in a white man's suit. His crew erupted in laughter. Sharp, ugly sounds that echoed off the walls. One of them, a thick-necked man named Paulie, actually slapped the table. "Probably stole it off a corpse," Paulie added. "You can dress up a—" He didn't finish. The word hung in the air like poison gas. Bumpy stopped walking. He didn't turn around immediately. He adjusted his cufflinks, letting the silver catch the light, then slowly pivoted. His face showed nothing. No anger, no humiliation, just the kind of cold calculation that made smart men nervous and stupid men dead. He walked toward Torino's table with measured steps, each footfall deliberate as a judge's gavel. The room went silent. Even the bartender stopped wiping glasses. Bumpy stopped exactly 3 feet from Torino, close enough that the Italian could smell his cologne, expensive, imported, worth more than Torino's watch. "You enjoying your visit to Harlem?" Bumpy's voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried to every corner of the room. Torino tried to maintain his swagger. "We were, until the help started getting ideas." Bumpy nodded slowly, as if considering this deeply. He reached into his jacket. Torino's men tensed, but Bumpy only withdrew a business card, plain white stock with a single phone number embossed in black. He placed it on the table between them. "Keep that," Bumpy said. "You're going to need it in exactly 48 hours. Then he turned his back, an act of calculated disrespect, and walked out. Torino's laughter followed him into the Harlem night, but the sound was hollow now, nervous. He had no idea he'd just signed his own death warrant. 48 hours later, Vincent Torino would be found in a Bronx warehouse, both kneecaps shattered, his crew scattered to the wind. The laughter in Harlem would be replaced by the systematic stutter of Thompson submachine guns, and when the smoke cleared, everyone would understand the price of mocking Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson's suit. The story of how Vincent Torino lost everything is a warning that history has tried to hide. If you enjoy these deep dives into the underworld, you can support the channel by buying me a coffee using the link in the description. Your support keeps these investigations alive. Now, let's go back to August 15th, 1942. Harlem, 1942. War money flows north while soldiers ship out, and every dollar that passes through Manhattan leaves a fingerprint in the uptown streets. The wartime economy creates opportunities and tensions in equal measure. Factory jobs open to black workers for the first time. Paychecks grow fatter, but so does the resentment from those who believe prosperity has a color requirement. Above the sidewalks, signs promise freedom and democracy, but inside patrol cars and station houses, the color line is enforced with brutal precision. Harlem stands at the intersection of two empires. Downtown, the Italian families run docks, union halls, and gambling dens. Uptown, black policy kings control the only lottery that pays when banks refuse to. Between them exists a fragile truce, signed not on paper, but in blood. Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson is the enforcement arm of that agreement. To police, he is a criminal. To Harlem, he is a protector. He is not just another street thug with a gun and an attitude. He is Harlem's unofficial mayor, the man shopkeepers call when the police won't come, the arbitrator when disputes need settling. He educated himself in prison, devouring books on military strategy and economic theory while other inmates played cards. He approaches crime the way generals approach warfare, understanding that territory means nothing without the loyalty of those who live there. Italians downtown call him the professor because he listens more than he speaks, playing chess in a world where everyone else knows only checkers. His suit is not decoration. In 1940s America, a black man in an immaculate tailored suit commits a quiet act of war. The charcoal wool, the sharp crease, the polished shoes are not luxuries. They are armor. They are a visual rejection of the inferiority white society demands he accept. Every crease pressed sharp as a razor blade, every button fastened with precision, forces recognition from those who would rather pretend he doesn't exist. For Bumpy, impeccable dress is psychological warfare, demanding respect in a world structured to deny it. Vincent Torino represents everything wrong with the Italian mob's expansion strategy. The Genovese family sent him uptown not because he is smart, but because he is expendable. His mission is simple: gauge whether Harlem can be intimidated, whether the black policy kings will fold under pressure. Torino carries the arrogance of a man who has never faced real consequences, who believes his Italian surname grants him immunity. He looks at Harlem and sees weakness, sees people he can push without pushing back. When Torino mocks Bumpy's suit inside Minton's playhouse, he isn't just insulting one man. In the underworld, reputation is currency, and public disrespect is theft. Every eye in that room watches to see how Bumpy will respond. Silence would be interpreted as weakness. Weakness would invite more challenges. More challenges would erode the delicate balance that keeps Harlem from descending into chaos. Bumpy's reaction reveals the difference between a gangster and a strategist. Lesser men would pull a gun immediately, prove their toughness through impulsive violence. Bumpy understands that emotion is a luxury he cannot afford. He approaches Torino's table with the calm of a surgeon, every movement calculated to project control. The business card he places on the table isn't politeness. In gangster culture, it is a formal declaration of war, a promise wrapped in civility. When Bumpy returns to the Lenox Social Club, his lieutenants expect fury. Instead, they receive silence. He sits at the back table, saying nothing for 20 minutes. Conversations die out one by one, waiting for a verdict. When he finally speaks, his voice is flat, stripped of anything resembling anger. Get me everything on Torino. Sunday morning, 6 a.m. While respectable Harlem sleeps off Saturday night, Bumpy's invisible army activates. His intelligence network wears no uniforms, carries no badges, but sees everything. The maid cleaning Torino's apartment notes what bottles fill his trash, what women leave traces in his bed. The doorman at his Riverside Drive building logs every arrival and departure. The shoeshine boy outside Torino's favorite restaurant buffs leather while memorizing conversations. Elevator operators, bartenders, numbers runners, they all serve different masters but report to one man. By 9 a.m., telephone calls flood into Harlem pay booths. Torino came home drunk at 3:12 a.m. with 2 women who weren't his wife. He lost heavily at dice again, demanding credit he couldn't cover. His crew complains about light envelopes, money that never reaches them in full. Every detail builds a portrait of vulnerability. The dossier takes shape with surgical precision. Torino eats at the same Italian restaurant every Sunday at 1 p.m., back table, always facing the door. He sleeps late Mondays, never leaves his apartment before noon. His habits are so predictable, they might as well be train schedules. But the most valuable intelligence comes from a bookkeeper who owes Bumpy favors. Torino has been skimming from his own family, diverting Genovese money into his pockets. The stolen cash feeds a gambling addiction that has him into bookies for $15,000. He is a man walking a tightrope, unaware someone holds scissors. Inside the Lenox Social Club, Bumpy's lieutenants demand immediate satisfaction. They want drive-bys, alley beatings, the kind of visible retribution that leaves bodies in streets. Bumpy rejects every suggestion. Bullets are what stupid men use when they lack imagination. Torino needs systematic destruction, the kind that makes him understand exactly why he suffers. Smart violence, financial pressure first, then psychological warfare. The first strike hits Sunday evening. Torino's primary bookie, secretly on Bumpy's payroll for years, makes a phone call. All outstanding debts are due immediately. $15,000 by Monday noon. No extensions, no negotiations. Interest compounds hourly after that. Torino laughs into the phone, confident he can stall, unaware every escape route has been sealed. Monday dawn brings the second blow. A liquor shipment worth $8,000 sits on a Bronx dock, destined for Torino's speakeasy. 6 men in work clothes load the crates with professional efficiency, then drive to the Hudson River. In broad daylight, with witnesses watching from apartment windows, they systematically pour every bottle into the water. 200 cases of premium whiskey, gin, and rum dumped like sewage while police on Bumpy's payroll direct traffic around the spectacle. The psychological warfare begins Tuesday afternoon. A package arrives at Torino's apartment, wrapped in brown paper, no return address. Inside, the charred remains of the silk tie he wore Saturday night, stolen from his own dry cleaner. Someone invaded his routine, demonstrated that Bumpy's reach extends into the most mundane corners of his life. Beneath the ashes, a note in precise block letters. You have 24 hours to apologize. The price doubles every hour after that. Torino's response arrives Wednesday morning via messenger, a terrified teenager carrying an envelope. Inside is a photograph of Bumpy, torn precisely in half, with a single word scrawled across both pieces in red ink. Never. The declaration is clear. The war is now official. Monday morning, 10:00 a.m. Torino assembles his crew in a Bronx social club that reeks of stale beer and desperation. 5 men surround a scarred wooden table, each selected for intimidation rather than intelligence. They are hammers, searching for nails, incapable of recognizing they face a scalpel. Torino outlines his strategy with the confidence of someone who has never truly lost. They will hit one of Bumpy's number spots, send a message written in bullets and shattered glass. Show Harlem that Italians still control this city. At 2:15 p.m., a stolen Buick tears down 135th Street. 3 men lean from windows, Thompson guns chattering, brass casings raining onto asphalt like deadly confetti. Windows explode inward, brick chips fly. 30 seconds of chaos, then screeching tires and the acrid smell of cordite hanging in afternoon air. They speed back to the Bronx, congratulating themselves on a decisive strike. What they destroyed was an empty building. Bumpy evacuated the number spot 6 hours earlier, relocating operations 3 blocks east based on intelligence gathered during Torino's planning session. From a tenement rooftop across the street, Bumpy watches through binoculars, studying their approach with clinical detachment. The driver accelerates too early, telegraphing the attack. The shooters fire wildly, wasting ammunition on brick instead of strategic targets. They are children playing dress up in gangster costumes. While Torino celebrates his hollow victory, the financial vis tightens with mechanical precision. His gambling debts, previously consolidated with one bookie, are simultaneously sold to 3 different loan sharks. Each believes they hold exclusive collection rights. By 3:30 p.m., Torino receives 3 separate phone calls demanding immediate payment. The mathematics are deliberately chaotic, interest compounding in different directions, designed to create panic. At 4 slow p.m., city health inspectors arrive at Torino's speakeasy, following an anonymous tip about rodent infestation. They discover violations that existed for months, but were previously overlooked through strategic bribes. The liquor license is suspended within the hour. Torino's primary income source is padlocked by 5 p.m. Official notices plastered across the door like obituary announcements. Desperation drives Torino's final gambit. At 6 p.m., his crew attempts old-fashioned extortion, visiting Harlem businesses demanding protection payments. Each shop owner provides identical responses. They have already paid Bumpy for protection. Some display receipts. Others point to small brass markers near their registers, symbols recognizable to anyone familiar with Harlem's power structure. Torino's men retreat from each location more frustrated than the last, realizing they are not expanding territory, but trespassing on claimed land. The ultimatum expires at 11:59 p.m. Inside the Lenox Social Club, Bumpy kneels beside floorboards that appear identical to all others. He pries up 3 planks, revealing a hidden cache lined with oilcloth. 2 Thompson submachine guns rest inside, cleaned and maintained weekly despite never being fired. Until tonight. He lifts them with reverence, checking mechanisms with practiced efficiency. He walks to the back room, where a full-length mirror hangs beside his wardrobe. The charcoal suit from Saturday night waits on a hanger, pressed fresh that afternoon. He dresses with ritualistic precision. Button the vest. Adjust the tie. Fasten the cufflinks. Check the trouser crease. This is not vanity. This is preparation. This is armor being donned for battle. His lieutenant watches from the doorway as Bumpy examines his reflection with surgical attention to detail. Tonight, we teach them the difference between a costume and a uniform. At midnight exactly, 2 black Packards pull away from the curb, headlights off, moving through Harlem like shadows, carrying judgment toward the Bronx. Tuesday, 1:30 a.m. The Bronx warehouse sits in an industrial wasteland where legitimate businesses died years ago. Under a single bare bulb, Torino and his 5-man crew count stolen money on a table constructed from shipping pallets. They believe distance provides sanctuary from Harlem justice. Cash stacks grow while they divide earnings, laughter echoing off corrugated metal walls. The air smells of machine oil and stale cigarettes. At 1:43 a.m., 2 black Packards glide to a stop with engines barely audible. 8 men emerge wearing dark clothes that blend with shadows. They move with military precision, not the chaotic rush of street thugs, but the calculated advance of soldiers. 1 car blocks the loading bay. The second seals the side exit. Escape routes are eliminated before Torino realizes the trap has sprung. Inside, Torino holds court like a man who believes he has won. He recounts Saturday night's insult with embellishments, gesturing with a lit cigar. We showed that uppity shine his place, he boasts, smoke curling around his head. They scatter like roaches when you turn the lights on. His crew laughs on command, counting money that isn't theirs, confident the war is already won. At 1:47 a.m., the warehouse door explodes inward under the impact of Bumpy's boot. He fills the doorway, backlit by distant streetlights, the charcoal suit gleaming like polished armor. In his hands, a Thompson submachine gun rests with casual authority. Behind him, 7 silhouettes materialize from darkness. Torino's face transforms through confusion, recognition, terror. He sees the Thompson, understands that laughter has consequences, realizes his arrogance was a suicide note 3 days in the writing. His hand moves toward his waistband, but fear makes him clumsy, already defeated. Bumpy raises the Thompson and fires a controlled burst into the ceiling. Plaster erupts. The single light bulb shatters. Darkness swallows the warehouse, broken only by emergency exit signs casting red shadows. What follows is not a gunfight, but systematic execution. Torino's crew scrambles for weapons stored too far away, Muzzle flashes strobe through darkness like lightning, each burst revealing frozen tableaus of men realizing they are already dead. The Thompson guns speak in short, controlled sentences. No wasted ammunition. No chaotic spray. Just professional violence delivered with surgical precision. The noise lasts exactly 45 seconds. The rhythmic thud of heavy caliber rounds. Metallic clatter of spent casings hitting concrete. Then silence returns, heavy and absolute. The air reeks of cordite and copper. Torino whimpers somewhere in the darkness, a sound stripped of masculine pretense. He crawls behind overturned pallets, hands slick with blood that might be his own. Footsteps approach with deliberate slowness. Bumpy walks through carnage without hurrying, polished shoes clicking against concrete like a judge's gavel. He finds Torino curled in fetal position, trembling, reduced from predator to prey in 17 minutes. Bumpy kneels, pressing the Thompson's hot barrel against Torino's cheek. The metal sizzles against skin, raising an immediate blister. Torino screams, but the sound dies when Bumpy applies more pressure. "You disrespected my suit. Now you're going to apologize to it." Torino babbles apologies between sobs, words tumbling over each other in desperate cascades. He begs for mercy, invokes his family, promises money he does not have. Surrounded by his dead crew, he pleads for his life with pathetic desperation. Bumpy's response is colder than the warehouse air. Apologies are for accidents. This was deliberate. Death would be mercy, and Bumpy Johnson understands that mercy defeats the purpose. A corpse becomes a statistic, filed away and forgotten. A broken man, stripped of dignity and symbols, becomes a living warning. The warehouse air bites with winter cold, metallic with the scent of fresh violence. Bumpy's voice cuts through the silence, flat and final. "Stand up, strip, everything except your underwear." Torino's hands shake so violently he cannot manage his own buttons. Pride wrestles with terror for half a second, then terror crushes it completely. The expensive double-breasted jacket falls to blood-soaked concrete. The silk shirt follows. Each discarded garment is another layer of false respect peeled away, revealing the trembling man beneath the costume. The freezing air raises goosebumps across skin that held power minutes earlier. Torino stands shivering in his undershirt and boxers, reduced from predator to pathetic specimen. Bumpy gestures toward the steel safe with the Thompson's barrel. Torino stumbles forward on numb legs, fingers missing the combination twice before the mechanism clicks open. Inside, $22,000 represents weeks of skimming, gambling profits, protection payments. Torino removes every bundle with mechanical movements, placing stacks into a canvas bag held by Bumpy's lieutenant. This is not theft. This is reparations, the financial penalty for disrespect, calculated not in dollars, but in humiliation. Next, Bumpy collects the symbols Torino wore like credentials. The gold Patek Philippe watch, worth more than most Harlem families earn in a year. The diamond rings, one on each hand, designed to announce status with every gesture. The silk handkerchief. In Bumpy's hands, they become trophies stripped of meaning, evidence that respect is earned through wisdom, not inherited through ethnicity. From his pocket, Bumpy produces a handwritten note on cream cardstock. The message is simple, written in precise block letters. This is what happens when you laugh at the wrong suit. He uses a safety pin to attach it directly to Torino's undershirt, metal piercing fabric and skin, just enough to draw a single drop of blood. The pain is minimal. The symbolism is absolute. They leave him there, alive, freezing, bankrupt, surrounded by death and his own failure. Torino is not a victim, but a message, living testimony to the cost of disrespecting Harlem. By sunrise, the story spreads through both underworlds with viral efficiency. Bartenders whisper it before pouring drinks. Policy runners pass it along with their slips. Bumpy Johnson went to war over a suit and won. The humiliation was total, systematic, deliberate. The Genovese family response is swift and brutal. They shelf Torino immediately, mob terminology for permanent disgrace. He is stripped of rank, denied protection, marked as incompetent. In organized crime, stupidity is a capital offense. He lost money, lost men, and worse, allowed a black gangster to publicly humiliate the family. 3 days later, sanitation workers discovered Torino's body in a New Jersey ditch, 2 bullets in the back of his head, pockets empty. Not Bumpy's work. His own people eliminated the liability, erasing their mistake with accounting precision. The message arrives at the Lenox Social Club on Saturday afternoon, delivered by a nervous courier who keeps his eyes on the floor. Lucky Luciano himself requests a sit-down. The note is brief, stripped of threats or posturing. We need to talk about boundaries. The restaurant sits in neutral midtown territory, white tablecloths and heavy curtains blocking afternoon sun. Lucky Luciano waits at a corner table, espresso untouched, watching the door with calculating eyes. When Bumpy Johnson enters at precisely 2:00 p.m., he wears the charcoal suit, not a similar one, but the exact same fabric that started a war and ended 5 lives. The choice is deliberate, a visual reminder that while Torino is dead, the principle he died for remains very much alive. The conversation unfolds in low tones that barely disturb the air. Luciano, architect of modern organized crime, recognizes a fellow builder. No threats, no posturing, just acknowledgement of the reality Bumpy has enforced with blood and systematic precision. "We had a misunderstanding about geography," Luciano says, voice gravel over velvet. "Some people confuse maps with territory." Bumpy's response is measured, final. Geography is simple. Respect is complicated. Harlem governs itself. We do business, but we don't take orders, and we don't tolerate disrespect. The terms crystallize not as demands, but as facts. Italian families can operate uptown, numbers, liquor, unions, but only with permission, only with tribute, and never with the arrogance Torino displayed. The handshake that follows redraws New York's underworld map without signatures or contracts. It acknowledges that power flows not from ethnicity, but from capability, that the charcoal suit represents sovereignty earned through strategic violence. When Bumpy returns to a 125th Street, the atmosphere has shifted like electricity through copper wire. He walks 3 blocks from his car to the Lenox Social Club, while the neighborhood responds with organic reverence. Shopkeepers emerge from doorways to tip their hats. Children pause their stickball games to wave. Old women nod from apartment windows. They don't see a criminal. They see the man who defended their dignity and secured respect that extends beyond his person to the entire community. The suit becomes legend, discussed in barbershops and pool halls from Brooklyn to the Bronx. Other gangsters, black and white, study the story with careful attention. Bumpy Johnson transformed fabric into a weapon, turned clothing into a declaration of war. The lesson resonates through every level of the underworld. Respect is not requested politely and granted through kindness. Respect is required absolutely, and the price of learning that lesson through violence is always exponentially higher than the cost of giving it freely. The final scene plays out weeks later in a Harlem diner. Bumpy sits near the window, reading the morning paper, black coffee steaming beside him. His suit is perfectly pressed, charcoal wool absorbing the light like armor. A young Italian guy enters with an older mobster, spots Bumpy through the glass, and his mouth begins forming a smirk. Before the expression materializes, the older man's hand clamps onto his forearm with bruising force, leaning close to whisper frantically about the man in the charcoal suit, about Torino, about the warehouse, about the price paid for laughter. The young man's face drains of color, arrogance replaced by terrified understanding. He nods respectfully toward the window and hurries away like someone who just avoided stepping on a landmine. Bumpy never looked up from his newspaper. He didn't need to. The message had been sent, received, and permanently filed in the collective memory of New York's underworld. In a city where respect was currency, Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson had just made himself the richest man in Harlem. And everyone knew You could laugh at many things in this life, but never, ever at Bumpy Johnson's suit. The office door closes behind Klein with the soft finality of a vault ceiling. The contracts in his trembling arms feel heavier than lead, their legal weight nothing compared to the gravitational pull of the man seated behind his own mahogany desk. Ellsworth Johnson occupies Klein's chair as if the furniture were designed for his frame, feet elevated on the polished surface, reading a manila folder labeled in Klein's own careful handwriting, confidential client statements. Klein's voice fractures on first contact. "How did you get in here?" Bumpy closes the folder with the deliberate precision of a judge reviewing evidence. His eyes never leave the pages as he responds. "Your secretary admitted me. I was extremely polite, and she didn't feel comfortable refusing such a courteous gentleman." The answer devastates Klein more completely than forced entry would have. His own employee chose instinct over employment, recognizing something in Bumpy's presence that transcended business protocol. Klein glances toward the outer office, understanding two facts simultaneously. His security means nothing, and his staff instinctively trusts the man dismantling his empire. Bumpy gestures toward the contracts with judicial authority. "Place those on the desk." Klein complies without conscious decision. Bumpy produces a leather-bound ledger from his coat, opening it to pages covered in meticulous columns of numbers that tell stories of systematic theft with mathematical precision. "I've calculated exactly what you stole from Sam Cooke and 7 other artists," Bumpy states, his tone clinical as an autopsy report. Sam Cooke, $214,000 in diverted publishing rights, seized master recordings, and stolen royalties. 7 additional artists, combined total of $1,047,000. Current monetary value including compounded interest, $1,247,000, plus penalties for systematic disrespect. Klein's accounting background processes the mathematics automatically. The figure is accurate with terrifying precision. Each number represents documented theft, each calculation verified through sources Klein cannot imagine existed. Bumpy slides Klein's own corporate checkbook across the mahogany surface. "You will write restitution checks to every artist you defrauded. Principal amounts, interest calculated at street rates, plus a community respect fee that I determine is educationally appropriate." Klein's lawyer instincts activate despite his paralysis. "Mr. Johnson, surely we can discuss payment structures, legal frameworks, tax considerations that..." Bumpy's response is absolute silence. He reaches into his coat and withdraws a newspaper, folded precisely to the obituary section. One name is circled in red ink: Marcus Tillman, music producer, age 43, cause of death undetermined. Klein recognizes the name immediately. Tillman had disappeared the previous year after attempting to establish unlicensed recording operations in Harlem, bypassing neighborhood protocols, disrespecting territorial boundaries. The circled obituary communicates what negotiation cannot. Klein begins writing checks. The systematic dismantling consumes exactly 7 hours. Bumpy relocates to the corner chair, maintaining silent observation while Klein transforms into an instrument of his own destruction. The phone calls follow identical structure, each conversation a formal execution of Klein's predatory empire. Call 1, Bobby Womack, confusion transforming into gratitude as Klein explains the return of stolen publishing rights and delivers a check for $63,000. Call 2, Lou Rawls, demanding explanations Klein cannot provide beyond mechanical admission of theft and arrangement of immediate restitution. Call 3, Jackie Wilson's attorney, accepting payment with suspicious silence, recognizing forces beyond legal frameworks operating in this transaction. By hour 4, Klein's corporate accounts hemorrhage funds at rates that would trigger fraud alerts if the transactions weren't meticulously documented and legally executed. Bumpy reviews each check before Klein seals the envelopes, ensuring amounts match his ledger's calculations with surgical precision. Klein's voice deteriorates with each apology, arrogance replaced by mechanical compliance, his throat raw from repeating admissions of systematic theft. Hour 6 brings the revelation of secondary leverage. Bumpy places a thick manila envelope on the desk with casual precision. Inside are copies of comprehensive tax evasion documentation, offshore account ledgers, shell corporation structures, falsified returns spanning 7 years. This documentation was never actually submitted to the Internal Revenue Service, Bumpy explains with the calm of a man discussing weather patterns. It serves as insurance, a reminder that your entire financial empire can collapse with one anonymous phone call. Klein understands immediately. The threat isn't past action but permanent potential. He will operate under perpetual surveillance, one mistake from total destruction, one boundary violation from systematic annihilation. At hour 7, Bumpy delivers the final terms with judicial finality. You will never represent another black artist. You will never conduct business in any establishment north of 110th Street. You will personally fund a scholarship program for young musicians from Harlem. $25,000 annually, indefinitely. The board managing these funds will be appointed by representatives I select. Klein nods with the defeated compliance of a man who has lost comprehensively and understands resistance exists only as theoretical concept. As Bumpy stands to leave, adjusting his cufflinks with the same precision he applied to Klein's financial destruction, Klein asks the question that has consumed his thoughts for 72 hours. The grenade, was it actually functional? Bumpy pauses at the doorway, turning slowly. His expression reveals nothing, but when he speaks, his voice carries the weight of absolute truth delivered with surgical precision. You believed it was functional. That belief made you rewrite contracts, transfer wealth, dismantle your empire, and fund scholarships for the next 20 years. Whether the grenade contained explosives is irrelevant. Your fear was real. Your compliance was real. The consequences were real. That's the only truth that matters in any negotiation. He walks out, leaving Klein alone with the understanding that true power isn't about weapons or violence. It's about making men believe consequences are inevitable, then watching them destroy themselves trying to avoid what may never have existed at all. The grenade was never the weapon. Klein's imagination was the weapon. Bumpy had simply pulled the pin.